I'm here with Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Alexander, let's talk about the Pelosi impeachment inquiry. This is the key word, the impeachment inquiry. Alexander, you have read the transcript of the phone call between Trump and Zelensky. We're going to get to that as well. But what I would like right now is your thoughts on Pelosi's wording when she announced this impeachment inquiry, because this is very key. She's not doing a roll call of Congress to start the impeachment process. What do you think is going on?
Well, first of all, Pelosi clearly doesn't want an impeachment. I mean, she's made it absolutely clear. She's a very canny and experienced political operator. To give credit where it's due, she understands that the American people are entirely unhappy with the whole idea of impeachment. She also knows that 2020 is going to be the election year. She does not want the news media, all the stories being about an impeachment case, which is certain to fail, and we're going to go into that in more detail. She wants to concentrate on winning the presidential election by the Democrats in 2020, and in the Democrats holding on to the House of Representatives, which, by the way, I think they may struggle to do with the way things have been going over the last year or so. Now, that's the first thing to say. The second thing I must say is that she's obviously had to give ground. And the reason she's given ground is, I think, for two reasons. Firstly, because the left of the Democratic Party and the Democratic Party's base were worked up years ago into thinking that, impeachment was a real possibility against Donald Trump. They've been told that Donald Trump is a monster and, someone corrupt, crooked, evil, conspiring with the Russians, what have you. So the liberals have been pushing relentlessly. The left of the Democratic Party has been pushing relentlessly for impeachment. But I think the other thing that brought it together was that an awful lot of more moderate members of the Democratic Party caucus in the House of Representatives swung behind impeachment because they are very, very scared that investigations of Joe Biden might potentially expand and might, in effect, start to have a sort of rollover effect. They might not just make it more difficult for the Democrats to win in 2020, but they might extend perhaps to some of them who may have been doing some similar things to the sort of things that Joe Biden has been doing. After all, let us never forget, Donald Trump became president with the promise that he would drain the swamp. So if they fear that there's a real possibility of the swamp being cleared, that's going to scare them. So all of these people came together. The pressure on Pelosi was extraordinarily strong. She therefore agreed to what she calls an impeachment inquiry, which is not a decision to actually go for impeachment. It gives the impression that it is, but it simply says, well, actually, we think that there might be a case for impeachment, so we're going to talk about it and we're going to look into it, but we haven't really made up our minds yet. So I think that people who are assuming that Pelosi has made that decision and that the the Democratic Party leadership is committed to pursuing impeachment very much against Pelosi's better judgment are actually reading more into this than is actually there. Pelosi is under a lot of pressure. She's playing a very complicated and very difficult game. She's, as I said, a very canny operator. She's more grounded in reality, in my opinion, than many Democrats are. But she does risk, it seems to me, by talking about an impeachment inquiry and by setting one up, she is in danger in the end of satisfying no one if impeachment doesn't happen.
Yeah, nothing is going to turn out well for the Democrats here.
No,
And
no.
a lot of the fault falls at Pelosi's feet and at the
Yes.
entire Russiagate inquiry, which fell apart.
Well, this is it, because of course this is the source of all the trouble, because the Democrats, including Pelosi, were sure that Mueller would come along and prove to them that Trump had colluded in some
Boy,
way
did he
with
not.
Russia. And it turned out, of course, that he didn't. And so now this issue of impeachment, which Pelosi played a huge role in fanning, especially before the 2018 congressional elections, has now come back to bite her. She's created a Frankenstein's monster, which is on the loose, and it could easily gobble her up. And with it, the Democratic Party's chances in the 2020 election.
Yeah, it's like a bad sequel, isn't it, Alexander? You had the first movie, the Russiagate, that was the premiere. And that thing completely fell apart, gloriously with Mueller's testimony, which we all remember. And now you have just the bad sequel, which doesn't deal with Russia, but now deals with Ukraine. I'm waiting for part 3 and 4, which will be Belarus, Kazakhstan, and maybe Uzbekistan will be, they'll fill out the 3-4 part series because it just seems to be going through the former, CIS countries one by one.
Yes. I mean, exactly. This is absolutely right. Can I just say, and this is before we actually get into the factual allegations, which are, by the way, I should preface my comments by saying that they are completely and entirely and totally wrong. The reporting of this story has been factually incorrect entirely. But before we get into that, even if everything that the Democrats were saying about this telephone conversation between Trump and Zelensky were true, even if Donald Trump had said to Zelensky, investigate Biden, and you're not going to get some aid if you don't, to my mind, that still would not be an impeachable matter. And I'm going to tell you something else. I think the American people would think the same. But it isn't even so.
Yeah, but to close out the Pelosi statement, her announcement of impeachment, Alexander, I think the big tell in all of that was the fact that she didn't even wait to see the transcript or get any more information. So to me, that tells me this was very much like Pelosi, kind of giving the candy to a screaming kid, to the screaming brats of the Democrat Party, the AOCs and the squad and everybody else that has been screaming for impeachment. And Pelosi's just kind of saying, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do for you.
Yes.
I'm going to announce an impeachment inquiry. Just leave me alone. And that's that. Exactly. Without even waiting 24 hours to actually see what's going on. So it just goes to show that Pelosi, I don't think, is really taking this seriously.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, she had a big row a few days ago with Jerry Nadler, in which she compared him with Captain Ahab of Moby Dick fame. This captain, this crazed, deranged captain who's off after this whale and destroys his entire ship and sinks his entire crew on this. It's, a story of obsession. And what she's saying to the Democrats and to people like Nadler and all the others and the squad and all the rest, you are totally obsessed with impeachment. You're so obsessed with impeachment that I'm washing my hands of this whole affair. You have your impeachment inquiry. It is going to blow up in your face. Don't blame me. Unfortunately, they will.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there we are.
There we are. So now let's get to the transcript and let's break this story down and get to the truth.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read you 2 excerpts, Alexander. The first excerpt from the transcript is the only time that Biden's name was mentioned in the 5-page memorandum. Okay, so that's going to be the first thing I'm going to read to you, and here it is. There's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the Attorney General would be great. This is Trump speaking to Zelensky on a July 25th call. And Trump followed up by saying, Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution. So if you can look into it, it sounds horrible to me. So that was Trump's only mention of Biden during the phone call, according to this transcript. Now, I think this story is really about Ukraine. The coup, Obama's coup, Biden showing up to Ukraine and speaking to the parliament, John McCain showing up at the Maidan and speaking to the crowds, Victoria Nuland passing out cookies, and a whole lot of corruption going on, which actually led to Russiagate. And it deals with CrowdStrike, it deals with Manafort, it deals with the DNC, and all of these characters that helped push Russiagate. Here's what Trump also said to Zelensky. I would like you to do us a favor, though, because our country has been through a lot, and Ukraine knows a lot about it. I would like you to find out what happened with this whole situation with Ukraine. They say CrowdStrike. I guess you have one of your wealthy people, the server. They say Ukraine has it. There are a lot of things that went on. The whole situation. I think you're surrounding yourself with some of the same people. I would like to have the Attorney General call you or your people, and I would like you to get to the bottom of it. As you saw yesterday, that whole nonsense ended with a very poor performance by a man named Robert Mueller. An incompetent performance. But they say a lot of it started with Ukraine. Whatever you can do, it's very important that you do it if that's possible. That was Trump speaking to Zelensky. CrowdStrike, Mueller is mentioned. No one is talking about it. We're going to talk about it.
Well, indeed we are, because as a matter of fact, you're absolutely right. This is a conversation about Ukraine, and it is in fact that which is the key. The key is those two words, CrowdStrike and Mueller. Now, I have read this transcript. I have read hundreds of thousands of documents in my professional life. I have discussed, analyzed them many times. I've discussed them many times over the course of our videos, the videos we've done about Russiagate. I challenge anybody to say that I've got any analysis of a document that's been produced in Russiagate that I ever got this wrong. This is my analysis of this document. This transcript, which I conveyed to you some hours ago, and which, by the way, in parenthesis, has now just been confirmed in its essence by the talking points the White House has distributed to Republican Congress people. What Trump and Zelensky were talking about was this. Trump was asking, right, this is what they were talking about. We know that there has been a major Russiagate scandal in the United States. This is the great trouble our country has been through that Trump is referring to at the start of the call. We also know that Attorney General Bill Barr and John Duran, who is the attorney, the district attorney, who has been instructed by Barr to look into this whole question of Russiagate, that they are in the process of conducting an investigation. There have been lots and lots of, shall we say, rumors. They're not actually rumors, indications, facts, clues that Ukraine was intimately involved in Russiagate at the beginning. Ukraine, as you correctly said, there was a coup in Ukraine in February 2014. The Democratic administration of Barack Obama was at the center of it, engineered it. Joe Biden was their point man who was actually pulling all the strings. This government that appeared in Ukraine in 2014 was very close to the Democrats, very hostile to Donald Trump, who was talking about a rapprochement with Russia. And there's been very, very plausible reports, that's putting it mildly, that the Ukrainians were helping the Democrats. In fact, that they were, if you like, colluding with the Democrats during the 2016 election to help Hillary Clinton beat Donald Trump. Now, what this conversation is all about is Donald Trump saying to Zelensky, or rather Zelensky saying to Donald Trump, because it's Zelensky who's taking a lot of the initiative here, we will cooperate with the Duran investigation. And Trump saying to Zelensky, we hear all of this, we got all these concerns, we've had all this trouble, we've got issues, there's all kinds of issues that we need to find out from you. We've heard stories, bear in mind, this is about an actual ongoing Department of Justice investigation. We've heard information that this alleged hack of the DNC computer, which CrowdStrike attributes to the Russians, that you in Ukraine have provided some information connected to this. That's where CrowdStrike comes in.
That's the story.
That's the story. But there's more. We also understand that you have the server. Well, I don't know this for a fact, but I can't help but think that what is being referred to here is that they have information about Hillary Clinton's private emails, the famous, notorious Clinton-era emails. What he is also saying to Zelensky is that there are still many people in your administration who are left over from the previous administration, the previous Maidan administration, which Obama and Biden engineered and brought into power. And I'm concerned that these people are going to try to obstruct this investigation. Then Zelensky comes back and says to Trump, don't worry, all of these people are being winkled out. This very bad ambassador, the Ukrainian ambassador that there's been in Washington, who's been working hand in glove with the Democrats, I have recalled her. And I'm going to meet, I'm prepared to meet with your Attorney General and his officials, and I'm prepared to meet with your private lawyer, Rudy Giuliani also. Rudy Giuliani, that name is brought up by Zelensky. It is not brought up by Trump. It is Zelensky who says, I am prepared to meet with Giuliani. It's not Trump who asks Zelensky, meet with Giuliani. And then Trump, hearing all of this, he says, that's great, but I still have some concerns. I recall that one of your prosecutors, when he was investigating the Bidens, who were doing all these bad things, or rather there's rumors that they were doing all these bad things in Ukraine, I recall that man was sacked and that Biden bragged about it on television. And Zelensky again is reassuring him that nothing like that will happen. That's what this telephone conversation is all about. Yes, there is a reference to the Bidens. There's clearly concerns by Trump about the sort of things that they did. But the primary point of this telephone call is not about the Bidens at all. It is not Trump urging the Ukrainians to investigate the Bidens. It is Trump asking Zelensky for reassurance that the Durham investigation will get all the cooperation from Ukraine that it needs in order to expose the collusion that was going on between the Democrats and the Ukrainians. And Zelensky is giving Trump those reassurances. Now, that doesn't mean that, Biden is in the clear or, that there aren't going to be investigations of him. What the Democrats have done is that they've raised the profile of the Bidens. We will come into this in more detail. But this is a perfectly appropriate call by the President of the United States seeking reassurances from a foreign leader, President Zelensky of Ukraine, that Ukraine will cooperate fully and properly with an ongoing Department of Justice investigation.
That's exactly right, Alexander. You explained it perfectly. This transcript, this phone call was all about Ukraine and Russiagate and the origins of Russiagate in Ukraine, which I think is pretty well documented at this point, that a lot of Russiagate, the entire Russiagate hoax, a lot of it originated, started, and was pushed out of Ukraine. I think there's no doubt about that at this point. And you had Giuliani on Laura Ingraham last night. So people watching this, that would have been 2 nights ago.
Yeah.
That's when this video is going to be going up. But you had Laura Ingraham refusing to hear about Ukraine when Giuliani was urging her to give him some time to talk about the corruption in Ukraine in relation to Russiagate, which tells me, whether it's left or right, Democrat, Republican, MSNBC, CNN, or Fox News, when someone like Giuliani goes on the show and says, I've got the money trail of Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, I've got the documents, I have them. He actually says that. I've got the documents. I've got the bank records. I've got everything of what was going on in Ukraine during the Maidan and the years after the Maidan. And Laura Ingraham basically says, we don't really, we've already talked about that. You know what it tells me, Alexander? It tells me that the DC establishment, the swamp, has put the message out. Don't bring up the coup in Ukraine. Stay away from that. Focus in on this Trump quid pro quo, where there wasn't any, by the way. Focus in on that. Don't touch the Ukraine coup, the illegal coup of Obama, the fact that Biden was there, the fact that McCain was there, the fact that they were dealing with neo-Nazis, the fact that they started a war in the East, all of those facts. They don't want this brought up.
That is entirely right. Now, can I just make a point? I would, by the way, say that it was a remarkable interview between Laura Ingraham and Giuliani for the things that Giuliani said. You remember we did a video very recently, I would remind our viewers, we did a video very recently about the Biden situation, and I said that it's almost certain, on the strength of Giuliani's tweets, that Giuliani actually has documents and information that he can actually prove the corruption of the Bidens. And he went on this program with Laura Ingraham some hours after we did our video, and he confirmed that. He said, I've actually got the documents. I've got lots and lots of documents. And as you correctly say, Laura Ingraham didn't want to hear about any of this. She didn't want to hear about Ukraine. She didn't want to hear about Biden's corruption. She didn't want to hear about any of these things. She wanted to talk only and exclusively about this completely false narrative that there was some sort of quid pro quo whereby Trump put pressure on the Ukrainians to investigate the Bidens. That is not true. She was wholly wrong, and it was very, very interesting to see how she was continuously running away from the real issue in this case. And of course, it gives every appearance of being explosive, because I'm going to make a guess. I'm not making a guess. I'm making shall we say, it's better than a guess. I'm making a prediction that the real issue is obviously the coup in Ukraine, but also the massive collusion between the Democrats and the Ukrainians to try to stop Donald Trump winning the 2016 election. The real collusion was not between Trump and Russia. We have conclusive proof now that that never happened. Mueller has proved it. What we have is overwhelming evidence of collusion between the Democrats and the Ukrainians. And I'm going to say in this program that this isn't the program to discuss it in too much detail, between the Democrats and the British also.
This is a geopolitical earthquake, Alexander, because
Yes.
if you relitigate Ukraine and go over all the events that happened, which actually led to Russiagate, you're talking about a coup by a U.S. president, former U.S. President Obama. You're talking about massive corruption. You're talking
Yes.
about a war in East Ukraine and all the arms that went to East Ukraine. You're talking about a neo-Nazi movement that was supported by the United States. You're talking about MH17 and what really went on there.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see why they want to avoid this, and they're just trying to focus in on this Trump quid pro quo thing. And I also want to say it, Alexander, before I forget, from a whistleblower that isn't even a whistleblower, while we're talking about false narratives, this is not even a whistleblower.
No, he's not even a whistleblower.
And everyone's saying whistleblower.
Well, yes, I mean, he isn't a whistleblower. He didn't listen into this conversation. He's given a completely garbled and frankly false account of this conversation, which he got at a second or third hand from other people. So he doesn't actually know what he's talking about. He's given a false account of this conversation, and the Inspector General of the CIA has concluded that in fact he is politically biased against Donald Trump also. So this is not a whistleblower. This is somebody, a member of the deep state, of the intelligence services, carrying on the feud against Donald Trump that the intelligence services, the intelligence community, has been waging against Donald Trump during and before the 2016 election. And I would add, it's very striking that the law firm that he's turned to is one which is known to be deeply hostile to Donald Trump. So, I mean, it's clear that we're not talking about a whistleblower. Now, you talked about corruption. Just take a step back and think about this. We have Hillary Clinton running the Clinton Foundation as Secretary of State in the Obama administration, and she's the Clinton Foundation, as most people accept, was a sort of pay-for-play slush fund, if you like. She was running it all through a private server, through which she was also passing classified material, which was against the law. This was going on under while Barack Obama was President of the United States. She's a top official. She's the number 3 in the political leadership of the United States, whilst Barack Obama is president. Number 2 is Vice President Biden, who is fomenting coups in Ukraine, getting cushy jobs for his son, or at least, well, he denies it, but his son gets a cushy job out of this coup. He manages to get the prosecutor who's investigating his son sacked. And let's remember, he does that by threatening to withhold funds. So there's a quid pro quo there. It's interesting nobody's saying that, but there was. And at the same time, we now hear this story from Giuliani that he, or rather his son, was receiving a $1.5 billion bribe from China. Now, if this isn't corruption or alleged corruption on a pharaonic scale, then tell me what is. The number 2 and the number 3, Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton in the Obama administration. Now, surely that repays some inquiry or investigation also. And I think what the Democrats have done is, by talking about this thing as being some sort of attempt to go after Joe Biden, they've done what we said in our previous video. They've actually finally brought this story into public focus.
Yeah, Alexander, before I get into your outlook as to where we go from here, and I want to hear, your thoughts as to what the next steps are, so you can get into that.
Yeah.
I have one simple question to ask you, really, and I think I'm positive I know the answer to this, but let me throw it your way. Trump mentions the server to Zelensky. He mentions CrowdStrike.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure that Ukraine and SBU, Ukraine Intelligence Services, I believe it's the SBU, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The
I'm
SBU.
sure they have a lot of information
Yes.
as to what was going on in Ukraine,
Yes. Yes.
especially with the DNC, with Hillary Clinton, with the Bidens. I'm sure they've got everything.
Yes.
CrowdStrike, they've got it all. Maybe it's
Yes.
sitting in some office building. I don't know, but it's there.
Yes.
Is it fair to say that Russia, which has Ukraine wired from top to bottom, has people everywhere in Ukraine and probably knows Ukraine better than the Ukrainians know their country? Is it not fair to say that they know exactly what Ukraine has, where it is, and the contents of that information as well?
Well, of course they do. And I can say that with absolute certainty because I can say that on the best possible authority, who is President Putin himself. He did a fascinating interview, I think it was in 2016, with a US government, with a US newspaper, I forget which one, in which he says, you know, we got spies everywhere, all over Ukraine. We know who met whom. We know how much money was paid. We know where these meetings happened. We know everything. He actually used those words. I remember that very clearly. He said, we know everything. And I am sure that he was sending a signal. He was giving a warning to people in Washington at that time. This is at the early stage of the Russiagate affair, that the Russians actually have every piece of information, the whole story, they know everything about everything that was going on in Ukraine and who these various people are. I would just add something else, by the way. There were some references in Trump's telephone call to Zelensky to all sorts of very rich people being involved. Now, I'm not going to try and guess who these very rich people were or are. They might have been Ukrainians, but I have to say, the way I read that transcript, the way I read those words, it's clear, by the way, that Zelensky and Trump had more understanding of what was being said than we do, and this isn't exactly a transcript. It's a minute. It's a kind of stenographic record that people have written out. People, you know, desk officers were written out who didn't perhaps understand all the nuances. My impression from reading that memo is that these very, very rich people who were being talked about were Americans.
Soros? These types?
I'm not, well, possibly. I mean, I'm not going to give. I mean, you mentioned Soros. I'm not going to say it was Soros
or these types of
these
people,
types
these
of
globalist
people.
types.
Exactly.
Yeah.
These globalist types.
But we know Soros was active in Ukraine. I mean, that's not a
very, very, very active. Very, very active.
Trump would have known that too.
Of course, he would have done. So you know, but that was the impression. That, I mean, people can look at the memo. It's easy to, this transcript. It's easy to find. People can read it and judge for themselves. But that was my own impression, actually. That was how it read to me. That's how it came across to me. By the way, the other thing I should say is that this conversation, to my mind, does give a very interesting idea of where the Durham investigation is going and the sort of things it's looking into. I say that because I presume that Donald Trump is being kept well informed about it. So it's clear that Barr and Durham are going to investigate the Ukrainian side of things on the strength of this call.
All right, Alexander, wrap it up for us. Where do we go from here? What do you see going forward now with this entire impeachment debacle, which it really is.
It really will. It really will be.
And it's been poorly misrepresented and poorly reported. No one is getting this story right. I think we've got it right, but I don't think anyone's going to follow our line of analysis because it's too dangerous for them.
Yes. No, I mean, it's been completely misrepresented. As I said, the media is continuing to run with this false narrative that it was a telephone conversation in which Donald Trump pressured Zelensky to investigate the Bidens, which, as I said, just isn't true. That's not what that transcript says. So it's being misrepresented, and it's being deliberately misrepresented. There's a bizarre article, by the way, a bizarre report in The Guardian, where they said, you know, there's reference to CrowdStrike, and, you know, It's the Guardian actually says we don't actually understand what this is and what CrowdStrike is. Like hell, they don't understand. They know exactly, but it is being misrepresented. Now, where does it go? Firstly, it will blow up in the Democrats' face. I mean, this isn't going to work as an impeachment. The Republicans in the Senate will combine to oppose it. The Republicans in the House will combine to oppose it. More to the point, I think a lot of Democrats, when they start to understand what is really happening, are going to get extremely nervous at this whole impeachment process, which, as I said, is going to blow up spectacularly in their face if it goes on. And I'm not convinced it will, because, as I said, Pelosi herself, I think, has no belief in it. And I think that the facts are so completely diametrically opposite to what is being said that I just can't see how it's going to work. So that is going to strengthen Donald Trump. That's going to make his position politically going forward into the 2020 election much stronger. He's going to say the Democrats are obsessed with impeachment. They're constantly trying to undermine and harass me. They tried with collusion with Russia, and that was false. And now here they go again, constructing this utterly false narrative, which within a few weeks or days falls apart. So it's going to strengthen Trump. It's going to make the Democrats look obsessed to the American people, and it will make Trump look like a victim, which is a very bad thing for the Democrats. But there is a bigger story, a much bigger story, because by going for this bizarre impeachment process, and by making such a furore around this, and I should add, by the way, that I'm quite sure that when rumors circulated, the very first rumors circulated, that Trump had made an inappropriate promise to a foreign leader, many Democrats assumed that was Putin. It didn't occur to them then that it was Zelensky. But anyway, having now brought the whole issue of Ukraine into the open, it's going to be very, very difficult to force this genie back into the box. We're now going to have more and more investigations of all of these different aspects in Ukraine. We will see whether Trump is right, whether the Ukrainians do have the server, and if it is Hillary Clinton's server, and if it suddenly appears in Ukraine. We will see what exactly that Ukrainians were doing with the Democrats, and maybe whether they were in contact with the Democrats, and what kind of coordination, or as I said, collusion was going on. And we will also learn inevitably about all of this corruption that was taking place, of which I should stress Joe Biden is by no means the only person involved. So we're going to learn an awful lot, and the Democrats have set themselves up for this. It's not just going to blow up in their face, it is going to obliterate them.
They only have themselves to blame for this one.
Well, if you are obsessed, if you're in a hole, you stop digging. And instead of stopping digging when the Mueller report imploded on them, what did the Democrats do? They went on digging, and now they've fallen straight into an abyss.
They should have stopped at the 2018 midterms.
Yes, I agree.
That's when they should have just shut the whole thing down. They got what they wanted. They won back the House. They didn't do that well in the Senate, fine, but they got the House. They should have stopped there.
Exactly. And started to concentrate on those things that the American people care about. Health, education, the economy, jobs.
They took it too far.
They took it much too far.
Yeah. Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran, thank you very much. Guys, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below. Click on the notifications bell to make sure we get notifications every time we push out a new video. And remember to follow us on iTunes and on Soundcloud to get an audio copy of this video. The links are in the description box down below. And also in the description box, you will find links to PayPal, Patreon, and Subscribestar. Please donate to this channel. Your donation really helps keep this channel going. And Alexander, something else that helps keep this channel going is when people go to the Duran shop and pick up some merchandise.
You know, I've been drinking
there.
2 mugs there. I've been drinking from other mugs, actually, but I brought these ones because this is so appropriate to the Ukraine story. This is the mug with the emblem of the Russian Federation. And of course, we know Putin drinks from cups and mugs which have this very emblem. So here's the man who actually knows everything about this story, as we said on our program, just as we do, because of course we drink from mugs just like this, beautiful 15-ounce porcelain, phenomenal quality Duran mugs. And these are the Alpha group, the Alpha force of the Russian intelligence agencies, the elite unit of Russian intelligence. And they're the people who collect all this information. So as I said, they know everything, as Putin said, and so do we, because we drink from mugs like this. So if you want to know everything, you should also drink from mugs like this. You can buy them from the Duran shop. And you can also buy fantastic shirts, T-shirts, like the one I'm wearing, which is a beautiful black T-shirt with our own Duran Golden Eagle there, which points in both directions, east and west. 100% cotton, beautifully dyed, beautifully stitched, beautifully cut, real high quality T-shirt, absolutely superb T-shirt. And it's not the only shirt we have. We've got polo shirts, we've got long sleeved T-shirts, and we've also got hoodies, we've got hats, we've got stickers, we've got books on Russiagate in our shop. We've got a book on Brexit in our shop, all complicated things. We'll have to do updates to these books because so much is coming out, but it's difficult to keep up sometimes with the news. You can learn so much from going to our shop. You can look so great from buying things from our shop. You can be so refreshed and have your mind expanded by drinking from cups like these ones that you can get from our shop. You can help us by going to our shop. You should not go to the shops of our competitors who are now imitating our products and doing so very badly. Our products are A1 quality, as all our customers say. So go to our shop, help the Duran, help yourself. Alex will tell you how to do it.
To pick up the magic mugs and the magic shirts, just go to the duranshop.com. The link is in the description box. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Till next time, everybody. Take care.